you know, you can paint in small areas with airbrush. It's starting to get a bit blocked up because it's been sitting there for a while, but now the other thing that's going to happen here, and this is called highlighting, number 3. If I'm weathering this, a black wagon, there's a new one. There it is, right. If I try to like put a wash over it, or rust or anything, you won't see it because it's black. So how do you weather a black wagon? Well, it's really easy to weather something like that because whatever I spray on it, that will see it, right? So what I do is I actually make it lighter first, and then I'll go back and make it darker afterwards. So what I'll do now is I'm going to highlight the underframe while I'm painting this. If I dry brush that, you wouldn't have a subtle effect. It's just going to be, you know, bright grey. So you can check the holes in the roof now.
I've seen exactly the same thing.
But that will be partly next on the list.
I'm waiting for the group.
This shed was my work shed when I was sign writing at one point. I don't use it for that anymore, but it ended up getting full up of car parts, right? And then I thought, right, I'm going to, you know, I want to get back into the layout, you know, building now, not just, you know, and get a decent size one made, and get together the plans, and you know, I've decided that, yeah, well, car parts have to go, and I'll have to stop mucking around with cars and just concentrate on the models.
Expensive anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, you know, this is going to get lined out now, and then it can be the model railway room for us. But even before it fully is, I'll be able to set up the baseboards in here and lay the track, because I'm going to do that in sections, and then I can cut the track and then pull the sections apart and push them over in the wall, and if we want to have a range section, we can just roll them out. So, because I'll still have to use this for some other purposes. Alright, so I'm highlighting now, so you can see how that's just a bit lighter grey now. And then if anything I do over top of that, you know, it shows up the detail, and I can make different colour shades over it now. Because if I put washes of different rust colours and stuff over black, you hardly see them. Especially when some paints, you know, it doesn't colour like straight away, not in the first coat. But I don't want the underframe to end up grey. I want it to be like a brownish and a few spots of rust on there. But the thing is that I can get those colours later on by using the powders or the washes. So what washes are, is it's just paint that's thinned out so that it's partly transparent, and the idea of a wash is you use enamel or oil paints. You need to have paint that's very runny. What it does is it runs into all the gaps, right, and it makes all the gaps and all the rivet detail and everything stand out. But also it's another way of doing a filter instead of the airbrush, because if you mix enamel down with terps and make it thin enough, it is partly transparent as well. So it's another way to put a filter on something without using this. So, but we need to have a light background of some sorts before we put a wash over it, because you're not going to see the colour. If I put a transparent wash, you know, something that's transparent like this is over top of black, you won't see that, will you? But if I put it over top of something like that, you will.
So you use terps, not special thinners?
When I use enamel, I use white spirit or terps with enamel. I mean, that's all you need for reducing enamel.
I usually use spraying thinners.
Which ones?
Spraying thinners.
Oh, spray paint?
Yeah.
Well, I only use that for acrylic lacquer, because spray paint thinners is too strong, and it will eat all the paint off of your models, especially if they were painted in enamel originally. So you have to use a very soft reducer, one that's not aggressive, otherwise it will start ripping paint off. So see paint number one acrylic lacquer. That's paint that's thinned out with something like this. You'll know it because it just stinks. All right. That red stuff I used over there is acrylic lacquer. So if you need to thin this out, you know, if you need to get that off, you'll have to use this, basically, that you use to get rid of reduce car paint with. That's what it is.
Okay.
It's lacquer paint, and you use lacquer thinners to get it off. So don't ever go on your wagons with that. It'll actually melt this plastic. So I use that for styrene kit, you know, for building styrene kits, because instead of MEK, it's the same, it's just cheaper. The only difference with MEK is it just costs 50 times as much as you're buying a small bottle like that for sort of $15 instead of a can like that for 30. It's the same thing. Or maybe the flashing off point's different, and that means that it dries out a bit quicker.
We use
but flashing off points vary between thinners as well. General purpose thinners dries faster than painting thinners. Painting thinners dries a bit slower because that allows the paint to flow out after you've painted it on. So the general purpose one will be the one I use for plastic, you know, for styrene and just evergreen styrene, just for melting it. That's what I use. Because it just has that perfect medium to me. It doesn't dry too quick, but it doesn't dry too slow. But, well, I suppose I use it because it works, but it's also just cheaper and I've always got it around. So, works all right for me. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to do some highlighting using some acrylic lacquer. Right, now the reason I want to use acrylic lacquer is because acrylic lacquer is hard, quick drying and hard wearing. So what it means is when I do a wash over top later on, it will not, it won't remove that highlight that I sprayed on there, because the paint's like really thin and it'll be really easy to you know, make it disappear if you put terps on there or water on there or whatever. So, this is the one I'm using. This is acrylic lacquer and SMS paint. That's acrylic lacquer. So that'll dry really quick and that'll be really durable. And I'll be able to do a wash over top of this, you know, in about 5 minutes. So,
have you used outlaw paints?
no.
Because they've got a big range of British colours.
British colours. Is that acrylic lacquer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's
It's
great.
the same as the SMS stuff.
I don't care what brand it is, as long as it's the colour that I want.
Yeah.
Now the reason I've got this is a very useful colour, because it's not what I call a cold grey, it's like a browny grey, so it's really good for timber.
What brand was that, Al?
Outlaw paints are in Queensland.
Outlaw.
Yeah, they're quite an Australian company. They're based in Queensland. They'll post down here, no problems at all. But they do all the British colours. They also do a lot of Australian colours as well.
Yeah.
They've got GWR green, the British Rail green, Doncaster green, all of those different
bottles, a little tin.
Yeah, same size as the SMS ones.
Does SMS not do that now as well?
They've started doing a few, but they've got nowhere near the range that Outlaws
Because
do.
SMS you can just get from Hobby Haven.
Yeah, I know. Although they are cheaper than SMS from Hobby Haven.
Yeah.
All right, so this one's a good candidate, right? Because this is straight out of the box. We know that no one's touched it, so it's perfectly plain. And this is black, and I don't want it to be. There's no point staying black yet, because I won't be able to see any of the washes or anything I put over it until I get some areas of it lighter. Oh, plus it's also one colour. It's not interesting. So, you know, as things get older, you know, you might have rust on this end, not as much on that end. You know, you'll be rust hanging around the rivets and stuff like that. So, as soon as I get a lighter shade over top, you know, then I can make it, you know, a good base for whatever I want to, you know, couple of shades I want to put over top.
How big's that compressor you're using?
That one's, I don't know what size it is.
Is it one of these little two-ended oscillating ones?
I got one. Didn't you get it? From
This one down here is just like a single cylinder, like a hobby compressor.
Yeah, no, sort of.
You
Is
know.
that well the thing I got that Audi?
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, if it was an Audi, it's much better than that. John never bought anything from Audi.
That
He
Audi-
would have paid $300-400 for that.
So this is how you do a filter,
that
okay?
That Audi one I got was only like $70. It's not bad for that price.
So what I've done is I put some of that paint in here, right? And just for the sample, just for now, because this is a new container. Just notice how I'm using this dropper. Makes it easier to put paint in and clean the airbrush using these. Because they're cheap, I can just throw them away when I get makey.
What about your airbrushes? Any particular ones you prefer to use?
Not necessarily, but what I'll say about airbrushes is some of the cheap ones work alright. What airbrush is not okay is an airbrush that's second hand or worn out or not clean. So you're better off having 3 cheap airbrushes than one expensive one that's old or got worn seals
I
or,
picked up a whole stack of
you know.
what they call makeup airbrushes.
Yeah.
Makeup artists use. I find them really good. And they're actually easy to keep clean too.
I've got a mate at work who he does a lot of war gaming stuff, and he's had airbrushes before, and he found this thing for about $60 off of eBay. And he says it's probably one of the best airbrushes he's used.
Yeah,
It's got that same
yeah,
shape on the
that's
bottom.
right.
All the
You know what's good about it? It's new.
all the good ones you can get spare parts for anyway, can't you? Like new
You
models.
Well-
can, but it's not worth it because you go and buy 3 makeup airbrushes.
Yeah,
They'll last you 3-4 years,
Who makes
that's
those?
it.
and then get 3 more later.
Who makes those?
And see, it's handy for me to have more than one
That's
because
why I got mine for me by $60, I think.
it's handy for me to have more than one because that one's got water based in it and this one's got a
You
acrylic
can
lacquer in
pay
it.
$60.
No, I paid 30 for my 3.
$10 each.
$10 each, yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make this look rusty on that corner, right? That's what we're going to do. And we're going to make it look a bit faded, right? So this is a filter now. So this is a light grey, browny grey, and it hasn't got. Now this brush is more expensive than that one, and look how it just spat at me. I don't know what's doing that. What's going on inside? I don't know. Something's not right in there. It could have it could have something projecting the needle. Okay, so see how that's now going to look faded because it's just very.
So this is like
Very
a wash,
transparent.
wash you're putting
It's a
over
filter. I'm putting a filter
yeah,
on it,
sorry.
right? And I'm going to put some on the bottom, and I'll put a bit more on this end. I mean, that'll do. And the other thing about weathering is just don't do too much, because these models are so fine. You take a photograph of it and look at it through there, and it'll just look like it won't look real if you've got too much stuff on there, or if it's too heavy, if you've gone too heavy with it. The detail's so fine, and the airbrush gives such a fine grade, and that's why it just makes such a convincing, model when you use the airbrush. But the other thing you can do instead of using the airbrush is you can use powders, but powders cover really well. Okay. I can't get see how it hasn't covered the lettering?
Yeah.
See how it's still see-through?
Yeah.
If I put powders on there, the lettering will start to be hidden quite a bit. So powders are really good also for if you want to blend a little bit of rust in a really small area, because if I spray rust on the airbrush, it's going to go over an area about the size of the end of that pen, right? Whereas I can get an area the end of the size of this, just blended with a bit of rust by using powder.
If you use powders, can you seal them in so they don't rub off?
Yeah, you can just put varnish over the top later. But when you do that, they lose a bit of their vibrancy. But but the other thing is, if you want to get the vibrancy back, you can go back over with that colour again after you varnished it. But at least that way, it never wears off completely if you put powders over top of a matte surface, like a non-porous surface. a porous surface. So you need to have a porous surface when you use powders, right? If you look at it in a microscope, porous surface is a matte finish. If you look at it in a microscope, the surface of matte will look like this.
Yeah.
And the surface of gloss will look like that, right? That's that's it.
That's why transfers always take better to gloss.
So that's why the powder will stick in all this in a microscope. So that's why we can't powder that yet, because this is like a semi-gloss finish.
Yeah.
It's a hard paint, it's acrylic lacquer paint, and it's like this, and the powder won't stick to it. But as soon as we spray matte varnish on there, we can put powders on there. Or if we spray it with enamel varnish, we can make powders stick on there really well. Yeah, because that will stay sticky for a while.
Yeah.
And the powder will stick to that. And we'll do that in a minute if we get time. What is the time anyway?